All right, you maggots, listen up. First, some disclaimers. My fingernails might be too long for you. It might aggravate you. I might go off on a rant and pick on people that don't do what they say they're going to do. Nitpickers and bullshit artists. All right, now, I mentioned Torroid coils to you, and in the past I showed you how to wind them. I showed you the shuttle tool, but I'm going to do an overview and a review today about what I've learned about toroid coils because there is no definitive handbook on toroid coils. I won't say it's a closed field. I think basically what happened was when they come out with toroids, it was just about the time a lot of people stopped writing books on electronic stuff, handbooks. So what you learn about toroids is from experience. Now, the first thing I want to go over is in 1981. Now, the Radio Amateur Handbook has been out for many years, but in the 1981 handbook, which you can find online, is a honey hole for toroid information. All right, it shows a shuttle. Now, the shuttle's not as good as mine. Let me get my shuttle here. Wait. All right, mine has a little hole in it. That's because you take a piece of wire and you stick it through the hole, and then you wind the wire onto the shuttle. All right, we're winding some wire, and this is 26 gauge wire. I use this for here we go, 26 gauge. It's enamel wire. They sometimes call it magnet wire because it was used to make solenoids and motors. You buy it on eBay. I don't know how many pounds this is, but in other words, this is the size I like to work with for 80 meter and 40 meter receivers. All right, right now, sitting on the launch pad is a T50-6, and this is a mix of ferrite material, which is similar to the material that a rod antenna on an AM radio is made out of. Now, when you want to go down in frequency, you add more iron into it. And ferrite is, I do believe it's some type of iron oxide. There's different oxides of different types of metals that they mix together to make it go lower in frequency and higher in frequency. You have more of an oxide, less particles of steel, and it's, I guess, mixed up, epoxied, and put into a mold. Now this is a T50-6. It's yellow. All your toroid coils, whether they might be black or dull black, it gets a little confusing. On the side, you might see some writing. I write on some of them that I can. This one here is it's FT82-61. And this one's good for AM broadcast, making crystal radios. I know I told you how you can make a crystal radio using a ferrite. The big mouths say you can't, but you can. It's depending on how you couple your signals. All right, so we have a T50-6 in the launch pad. We anchor the wire. In this case, I have there's a stud down here. I'm wrapping it around the stud, and then you come up and you take this tool and you put it through the toroid. And when you go through the first time, that's one turn. That's considered one turn. Anytime the wire goes through the toroid coil, and I'm standing up, I'm in an awkward position, but that's how you wind it. And you don't want to wind the windings over each other. You want to put a winding further out and then push it in. You want the windings to be right next to each other. So the shuttle tool, not as good as this one. Let me give you a better view of this one again. This one's more slender. All right, it's got rounded ends, so it won't cut the wire, cut through the insulation. And it's got little ears, so the wire will stay in there. It's basically a spool, you know, a wire spool, just like this. But it's elongated. So now you know how to hold it in the shuttle tool. And don't forget, Radio Amateur Handbook 1981 is a PDF. It's in section 2-30, and it explains toroid coils. And that's when they were basically switching over to toroids. And the ham radio guys, the smart ones, were starting to use toroids to make the circuits. And it made coil winding a lot easier, especially when you get into high power stuff. But anyway, I use T50-6 because this mixture doesn't expand and contract as much as a T50-2. So when you make an oscillator, you use a T50-6, and the oscillator will drift less with temperature if compared to a T50-2. T50-2 is cheaper, but I tend to, when I buy now, I buy the T50-6. I can use it for both the RF and the oscillator. Now, when you use toroid coils, you can use them to make bandpass amplifiers, bandpass filters. You get it, it's a hobby within itself. And I've built all the different things. Now, I showed you this setup in the last video. And this is a T50-43. It's shiny black. That's the color. Believe it or not, shiny black and black are two different colors. And I know black really isn't a color for those nitpickers that might be out there. But in other words, this is for wideband. This is for when you're going to put a wide band of frequencies through the front end into a radio, and you don't want it to resonate at one frequency. And I was trying this. It does, you can peak up and resonate, but the signal, it's not as sharp. The Q isn't as sharp. Okay, back to the launch pad. So the material this is made out of is ferrite, which is an oxide of maybe iron. Go look it up. And there's specific materials for specific frequencies. As you go up in frequency, there's more oxide than iron. Read up on it. You can find stuff. Like I said, there's no handbook for toroid coils. So you're going to have to like piece it together. And I'm giving you some pretty good head start. Now there's a website called toroids.info. And on there, you have charts. And you can click on different type of ferrite toroid coils. And you can put in the amount of turns, your capacitance, and it'll return to you the frequency that it's going to resonate at. And it's a very useful website. And I just wanted to show you this stuff because I've seen the other videos. They take a blank bigger than this, and they wind it by hand. They don't show you the shuttle tool. There it is down here, shuttle tool. They don't tell you where it comes from. I know where I got it from. It was a matter of locating a radio amateur handbook that would actually show the shuttle. And a picture's worth 1,000 words to me. And I looked at the shuttle, and of course the shuttle is done by a ham radio guy. It's redrawn. And he didn't think to maybe make it longer so he could get in a T50. See, when everybody does a toroid coil on a video, they use a really big one, and they wind it with a short piece of wire. They do 2 or 3 turns. They don't. Go look at my other one. I showed you the shuttle. I showed you. This is the size coil you're most likely going to use if you stay with the Radio Amateur's Handbook. Also, in the Radio Amateur's Handbook, in the 8-3 section, you'll see receivers that use toroid coils instead of the old-fashioned coils. And there is a direct conversion radio in there. It doesn't use 9 volts. I believe it uses 12. It's a little awkward, the circuit. And that's the circuit that I had to buy these. And it's for the mixer. Right? So I learned that there's a mix of ferrite material used to make a mixer, so it's more wideband. And that, when I bought from the guy, let's call him the toroid guy, I had to buy 25 of them. You're going to have to get that. They're not going to sell you just one. Now, it is possible to go over on eBay and get the amount you want. Maybe the guy, but you're going to get stabbed in the back one way or another, The guy will sell you 5 toroid coils, but he's going to make the money up on the shipping on you. Where the Torroid guy, he makes you buy 25. In this case, I had to buy 25, but the price in that was really reasonable. But you make the decision. But I just wanted to go over toroids a little more. And I did mention you can use them for crystal radios. What happens is you have one input coil wound, and then you come off that coil. Instead of going to ground, you go to the other coil, which has like 10 turns around it or 20 turns around it, and then it goes to ground. So the signal from the first coil that's on the antenna of the crystal radio inductively couples into the other coil, and it's a step up. Impedance-wise, it's a step up. If you go 20 turns to 100 and something, you're stepping up the signal. If you get the right kind of headphones, you're going to get a gain. It's a gain as far as if you got the right headphones. And that's the thing. Toroid coils, for their frequency, if you got the right one in there, it'll have a high Q. And I want to go over high Q real quick. High Q, you'll get more signal if it's an amplifier. If it's an oscillator, it'll oscillate more vigorously. When you go to the end, up and down in frequency, it won't cut out. When you turn the circuit on, it'll start every time because it's got enough gain to get started. Also, when you got a good Q on a toroid coil and you're tuning the frequency, it's very sharp. If you use something like this, I showed you on the last video, it's sloppy. Normally, you would need like a 10-to-1 on this shaft to be able to get the signal to peak up. What happens is when you use a wideband toroid, it's sloppier, it's wider. You can peak it up, but in other words, you're better off using a larger toroid. See, I was trying to come up with a simple, easy way to make an AM RF amplifier front end without having to wind 80-something turns or 60-something turns. See, I can do it with this one. And this is, I told you, FT82-61. It's dull black. And this one works good in the AM broadcast band. How I found this one was the guy built a transmitter for AM rebroadcast. And what you use an AM rebroadcast for is you don't like the old radio, you don't like the radio shows or radio programs that are on radio, AM radio nowadays. So you build a transmitter and you use an MP3 player into the transmitter, and you send old radio shows or your own show through any AM broadcast radio. If you're doing a flea market selling old radios, stuff like that. I have a transmitter I built. I told you I built a lot of things. Let's just leave it at that. I know some of the guys are like, who built this? Who built that? Because I like to tease the people that just watch videos and never build anything, and they always have something to say, but they never build anything. See, when you build stuff like I do, and you do videos, you'll respect what I do because you know how hard it is. You can be doing the video, and you look over it at your computer, and you see that it's locked up, and the video you just did is no good, and then the doorbell will ring. A car will sit outside and run its motor. A school bus might come by. A garbage truck might come by. You might run out of hard drive space and the video crashes. There's so many things that go wrong. You get a really good video going, and in this case, I use notes for this one. You can see my notebook over in here. I use notes because I wanted to go through and tell you these certain things. It's going to be more than enough to get you started. That's the goal of this video. My goal isn't to teach you totally about toroid coils. I send you in the direction of that radio amateur handbook. If you really like stuff, you're going to, wow, this is cool. Because it's back in 1981. It's at a transitional period when people were winding coils by hand, and they were starting to use toroid coils. And they did have some ICs in that book, but you can build the same receivers that people are building now with the NE602. I got the right number, NE602. I built the NE602 direct conversion radios. I built the old-fashioned one that's in the 1981 Radio Amateur's Handbook. I didn't realize what a direct conversion radio was. They kept calling them DC radios. Oh my God. I don't want to go into that. I think that's it. All right, that's it. Let's put it's on the launch pad. It's ready to go.